I just left the hair salon and part of my self-care day. And, I've been thinking about some really deep things and seeing some changes. Life with Shon is becoming more than quick encouragement or, little motivational moments. It's a combination of things. But, really, there's conversations here that I want to have. I'm talking real conversations, deep conversations. The kind of conversations that help women to look at their lives, their choices, their healing, their faith, their identity, and still believe that God can do something with all of that, no matter where you are in that thing. Because becoming, it's not just a word, a cute word. It's layered. It's healing. What else? It's forgiveness. It's looking back at some things that you lived through and being honest enough to say, yes, yeah, that hurt me, that changed me, that shaped me, but it did not get to define the rest of my life. Let's think about that. And I think about one of the reasons it's so important to tell our stories is because people need to see. We need to be honest, and they need to see what healing can look like on the other side when you get through that thing you're going through. I'm not talking about the performative, all the drama, the rah-rah, not knocking into that. It has its own audience. I'm not talking about pretending that nothing happened or the pretending, or being able to rush past this pain to sound spiritual and like we've arrived. But I'm talking about the kind that you can say, yes, I went through that. I made some choices. Things didn't quite play out the way I expected, but God still met me there. I can remember a time in my life that I was hurting. I was hurting so bad because of the choices that I had made and the things I had gone through. And, the way some people had hurt me. And if I can be honest, I wasn't thinking about forgiveness at that time. Nope. I wasn't thinking about grace. I wasn't thinking about healing. If I can be real honest, I was so hurt that I didn't care what part of hell the people who hurt me went to, as long as it was hot. I'm just being real, y'all. And I can say that now because I'm not standing in their place anymore. And that's the difference. That's what I'm talking about. Because when we're not healed, we can become the victim in the story. And I don't mean victim as in, what happened wasn't real, because some things have happened. We've gone through some things, and we all have our truth, right? Some things really did happen in some of our lives. Like I said, some people really did hurt us. That thing was real. Some choices really did cost us. I know they cost me some things. 21 years. But, some things really did leave marks as well. But listen, when the wound is still leading the story comes out of the pain. It comes out of anger. You're telling it out of, resentment. And people can feel that. Sometimes it comes out of that place that, still wants somebody to pay for what happened. And like I said, people can feel that. They can see it. They can smell it. They can watch it. They may even engage with it. Because, there's an audience for drama. I get that. There's an audience for anger, violence. There's an audience that will sit around resentment and call it the truth. But, that's not the only audience that's out there. No. There's a bigger audience that needs to see what happens when God heals a woman. They need to hear from somebody who can say, yes, girl, I went through it. I've been through it all, but I'm not still living there. I'm not going to stay in that place. I don't like it over there. They need to see that survival is not the whole testimony. Healing is. Forgiveness is. Wisdom is. Becoming the victor is the testimony, not the victim. Because you see, when God heals you, you don't have to tell the story from the same place where it wounded you. You can tell it from a different place where it restored you. And that's what I want life with Shon to be. I want life with Shon to be, a place where the story is honest. Tell the truth now, but it's not bleeding all over the people. And my God, have I bled on some folks. I'm sorry, y'all. I want it to be a place where the testimony has wisdom in it. A place where women can see that mistakes don't have to disqualify you. And, the pain doesn't have to define you. And what you survive, it can become a part of what God uses. Because, pain can make you hard. Disappointment, it can make you bitter. And y'all seen that. We've seen that in many women and men. Betrayal can make you rehearse a story over and over and over again till the pain becomes a part of your personality. And I know what that can feel like. I know what it feels like to be hurt and to want the story to prove how wrong they were and how bad they did me. I know what it feels like to want people to understand the weight of that thing, of what happened. But there comes a point in healing where the question changes. It's no longer who hurt me. It becomes, what is God doing in me now? Now, that's where the shift happens. And this is what I have lived. And this is why Life with Shon is coming 20 something years later. Because if I only tell the story from the pain, then the pain stays in charge. But you know what? If I let God heal me, then the story becomes something different, totally different. It becomes a testimony. It becomes wisdom. It becomes a reminder that I survived it, but I didn't stop there. I didn't stay there. And I think that matters. I think it really matters. Because a lot of people, I know them, they're walking around with stories they haven't been able to process yet for whatever reason. I mean, they know something happened. They know what happened. Okay? They know who hurt them. They know who it was. They know what they regret. They know where, life didn't turn out the way they thought it would. But, they've not yet seen that God can take even that and bring purpose out of it. That's the kind of God we serve. So listen, when I talk about becoming, this is what I mean. Because this was a process. There was a time I couldn't talk about these things in a healed way. I don't mean, that I'm a perfect version of myself or that I never had problems. I don't mean looking polished on the outside while everything on the inside is still breaking. I'm talking about allowing God to heal enough of you that your story becomes light instead of a weapon. Because, there's a difference between exposing pain and releasing wisdom. There's a difference between telling people what happened and helping them see what healing can produce. Now, there's a difference between still needing revenge and being able to say, God, I trust you. I give it to you, God. All of it. And I know it's not always easy. Forgiveness is not always a quick moment. Healing is not always neat. There are things that, we may have to work out and work through more than one time. There are memories that may still rise up. There are moments when you realize I'm better, but I'm still healing there. That's still a little tender right there. And that's real. We're human. We're human. But listen, even in that, God is still working. He can take the parts of your life that felt embarrassing. Oh yeah, I've had many of those. He can take the choices that you wish you had made differently. He can take the pain that you didn't know how to carry. And he can begin to build something in you that becomes useful to somebody else. Yeah, that's what this is all about. So that's why I believe that our stories matter. Every one of us, we have a story. Not because we need to tell everything. And I know it was a time when I was just telling it all, y'all. Not because everybody deserves access to every details. We have to use wisdom, even in sharing and being honest. Because our story needs to be told from a healed place so that it can give someone else hope. It's enough of the negative, enough of the drama. It can let another woman know that I may be hurting now, but I don't have to stay here. And that's what people need to see. It can show her that, being wounded is not the same as being finished. It can show her that God still restores. So listen, this is part of what we're building with Life with Shon. A space where real conversations can happen. A space for honest testimony. A space for becoming. Do you hear me? A space where we can talk about pain without glorifying it. That's not what this is. It's a space where we can talk about mistakes without living under the shame. And so many of us, too many of us, are still there. Life with Shon is a space where we can talk about healing in a way that gives people language for what God is doing in their own lives. So, because one day, you're going to be able to say, I remember when that broke me. I remember when I went through that. I remember when I did that. But then you're going to also be able to say, I didn't let it keep me broken. And that's why these conversations matter. This is why Life with Shon matters. That's why you matter. This is why becoming matters. Because your story may have pain in it, but pain does not have to be the final message. Please hear that. It doesn't have to be the final message. God can still use it. He can still use you. He can still do it from a healed place. And that's where he wants it from.